Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. Wearing my dad's lucky shirt. He used to work for Petro. He was an oil truck driver for 40 years. And I always feel good when I wear his clothes. It makes me feel that much closer to him. Anyway, today we have a nice little project. Some nesting hammer. If you ever seen one of those, really interesting. Love these little things. Let's go downstairs, check it out. It's a gorgeous day out. We don't want to be down there too long. Now, growing up in the 60s and 70s, these things were predominant all over the place, and these were, again, one of those gifts you would give to your dad maybe on Father's Day or something. Or it's pretty cool. It's a novelty, and not a gimmick, a novelty, a little bit different. And it's a ball peen hammer. Now, these were made, this one here is made in the United States. It's a really good quality. The problem is a lot of these were made overseas, knockoffs, and of inferior quality. Now, what this is, it's called a nesting hammer, or they used to have nesting screwdriver sets. And when they say nesting, there's more than one, and I'll show you how this works. Here you have a nice knurled ball peen hammer, and you can see the condition. Then when you unscrew this from the handle, you have a screwdriver. And you can see we have some rust, some issues to take care of there. And then when you unscrew the back here, you have a cap, and it hides another screwdriver. So that's a second screwdriver. This one's in much better shape, you could see. And the knurling here, beautiful knurling on here. We all love knurling, right? And then when you unscrew that, you get an additional screwdriver. Here we're going to have to do some work on the tip. You could see, the steel wasn't the best steel used, but we'll fix all this up. And when you unscrew that, you pull this out, the cap comes off. One more time, unscrew it, and it gives you what you would use like for eyeglasses or something like this. Back then, that was pretty interesting to think of all these within the one unit here. So let's get working on it. We're going to clean it up and try and make it like new. First job is going to tackle the head of the hammer, and you can see we have some denting and whatnot. So we're going to make this nice. And around the edges, we're going to try and fix this edge up here. You can see there's a little chipping started already, but we're going to make this nice. Now I'd like to show you in real time how long it takes to do something like this. Now, you can see here we're working on brass and we're working on knurling, okay, two of our favorite things. And when you're working on the knurling has a diamond pattern. And if you look really closely, you could see. So we want to get in between there. So you don't attack the brush right from the head on. Again, we go to the sweet spot of the brush, but we angle it this way so that the wires come and they will get in between the knurling. Not to make the knurling smooth, but to clean out in between these lines. And I'll show you how nice it comes out. And then over here, we just touch that very lightly on the side here, using the shaft as a handle to get that shiny. So let's check that out. Now, if you notice, we're going to keep moving the brass here so that we do not focus in on one area and create a spot. Keep it moving, keep it rotating, just using that side edge of the wire brush, the sweet spot, so to speak. And it makes easy work of it. Just make sure you don't go in too heavy. If you do push too hard on the steel, it will create an orange peel effect on the brass. So this way we're just very lightly letting the small wires take a light cut of the brass and give it a nice shine. We don't want to make any kind of striations on the brass. And just keep moving it back and forth, keep spinning it, and you'll see it comes out real nice, and then it'll polish up even nicer. That's it, we're done. Now we have a little bit of an issue here. We have a slight bend. You can see here it's bending to the right. If we spin it around now, it's bending to the left. A little bend there. And we're going to have to address. You see that? You can see it's a little bent. And the bend is about right here. We can't use the dake. It's just a little too small for the dig, but we're going to try and take it to the vise and straighten it out. We have to do that. Now, ideally, we don't want to put this where we put any stress on this brass collar over here, because this could crack. But what we want to do is we want to put just about pressure like this. We're going to pull it that way. So we have two flats here. I'm going to put that into the vise, into Great Grandpa's vise, and tighten it up a little bit, not too much that we leave any marks. And now what we want to do is put our hand around here like this and put pressure over here so that we're not putting any undue stress onto the top of that collar there. And then we're just going to pull back like this, and using our hands, we'll feel it give just a little bit, take it out, and check it for straightness. Now here's something interesting, especially for you guys in the UK, because here in the US we use the inch system, the imperial system, where they use the metric everywhere else. But we have an inch, and an inch is broken down into 16 divisions. You can see those little lines up there, 16 divisions. Now, in machining and with metric, we break an inch down to 1,000. So instead of just having 16, there's 1,000 divisions in an inch. And this is a dial indicator, and it's for every, you see here, it's marked down to a 90, it goes to 100. So if I was to bring this up here like this, that's 1/10 of an inch. Up here would be 2/10 of an inch, as I keep going up all the way up. So it would be 1,000 times, 1,000 divisions before we get to an inch. So very accurate. Now we put the dial indicator with a magnetic base onto the lathe here. We have the screwdriver chalked up into the chuck, and this is how I could see. Sometimes you look at it, you can't tell if it's straight, especially with my bottle bottom glasses. You can't tell because there's a curvature, whatever. So you put it into the chuck of the lathe, and by spinning it by hand, I can put the dial indicator resting onto the screwdriver shaft and see how much it's out of balance, or where it's out of balance. So as I'm spinning it here, you could see I'm turning it, and right here we're getting to a high point. We're about 18 thousandths out of on one side, you could see. So on that side we're 18 thousandths high, because remember, when this pushes up it goes that way. So that means it's highest at this point. So that's another way you could tell your high point, and that's 18 thousandths up. So you could tap this with a hammer to bring it down a little bit, but we're going to put it back in the vise and then chuck it here until we get this pretty close. Now you know my favorite part. Remember what it looked like before we started. Okay, we're calling this project finished. Came out really nice, didn't it? All polished up. The way this is what it would have looked like when it was brand new. Now I found out the manufacturer here. If you look really closely up here, you could see it says GAM Manufacturing Company, and there you could see the GAM Manufacturing Company, and it was made in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Now GAM is still in business, and they still I think they're called GAM Precision now, but they started in 1915. And you know, I'm starting to realize, as doing restorations, that a lot of companies have a kind of a sweet spot of their production line, and then this hammer, in my opinion, was it. When they made this hammer, this was all machined and nicely done, and then they started to change things, and I'll show you what I mean. Here's an example of some later models. You could see the casting of the head. You know, it kind of has a cheap cast. They have used an aluminum bottom cap instead of the brass one that's like the one I have. And here you see they even changed the shape of the hammer head. So, like I was saying, I think this is kind of the sweet spot of their production. And when this was made, I don't know, maybe 60s or something. But you can see here, polished out the front. Let me show you how it works again. This opens up really nicely. Remember the rust we had, the issues with the rust and everything, took care of that. And then we take off the cap here, and we have, that's a secondary. You know, this one came out real nice. You could see the polish on here. And again, brass always polishes up so nice. I mean, you can't lose with brass. And then you have the smaller one here, which the cap comes off, and then that breaks into the eyeglass one. So there we have it. A beautiful testament of tools that were made that almost look like it was custom made, like machinist made. So these are still readily available on eBay. You can find these all over the place, but trying to find the one, you got to have a style you like. I never liked it, those casted heads. I don't like the pointy back heads. This is like a a regular ball peen hammer. That's not just a gimmick tool. You could actually use this. So I would say it's more of a novelty. And that's it. So we have the GAM Manufacturing Company in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Nice little nesting hammer they made. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks very much for tuning in. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.